Okay, I'm trying to comprehend uh, what the heck we're thinking here. So I'm in the middle of doing some research for school, and some things are just blowing my mind. I mean, they're things that I already knew, but the statistics behind them are just driving me crazy. So the topic today is, why aren't we growing enough food to support ourselves? And it's one thing to have a higher export of agricultural and meat products than it is, uh, to have a higher export than an import. Or excuse me, it's one thing to have a higher import than an export. It's another thing when there's a giant gap. Then you have to start wondering, what are we doing? Because we're losing so much money in the agricultural sector, and we're not making it exciting or fun for people, so they don't want to go be farmers. We're down to like 1 or 2% of people in the United States are farmers or something. I've heard different numbers for that, but ow, a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. Ow, trying to take off my shoe and I just stubbed my toe. Sorry. Anyway, I'm kind of looking it up, and I'm looking at the deficit that we have. And it's actually kind of worrying me, just how much money we're losing. So sorry, I have so many things going on in my head right now, but let's just here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read to you guys some of the, come on, work for me. There we go. I'm going to read to you guys some of the articles and Google searches and things that I've been doing here. If I can get my screen to split properly. Okay. First things first, I said, could the U.S. produce its own food? Because I know that we don't produce the amount of food that we need. We don't produce the amount of food that we consume and throw away. Even if we didn't throw that away, we still don't produce enough food to even feed ourselves, which is ridiculous, because we are also the most efficient food producing country in the world. That means for any kind of food that we grow it more efficiently than, on average, than any other country on average. So why don't we grow enough food for ourselves? We also have tons of land mass, even compared to our population. So what's going on here? That's a question I set out to solve, and it's just led down rabbit holes and gotten more questions in my head. It's a really upside down business. So some things that popped up on a Google search when I typed in, could the U.S. produce its own food? Because I've been told that we can't even produce as much food as we eat, let alone what we throw away. And we throw away, I've heard different numbers for this too, 46%. That's a pretty repeated number. So is your country food independent? National Geographic. Fact or fiction, does America produce enough food to sustain itself? From the kitchen, CHN.com. California grows all of our fruits and vegetables. What would we eat? Blah, blah, blah. From slate.com. No, California does not grow all of our fruits and vegetables. These absolutes grow all of our fruits and vegetables. No. Okay. This is why cities can't grow all their food. People like to say a city could grow its own food if they just grew on rooftops and used hydroponics indoors and things like that. And that's not true. There's a lot of food that simply needs more space to grow. A lot of types of food. A city can grow enough food to sustain itself. It's just, it would be a massive, massive undertaking. Something that could happen in the future, but it's going to take years and years and years of agricultural growth within cities to do that. So anyway, that's from conservationmagazine.org. We've got the 4 countries that produce the most food. This is from Investopedia. I love Investopedia. Absolutely awesome. Great for anything to do with finance and accounting and business terms. All right. From National Geographic, is your country food independent? This is, I think this was more focused on the UK. Hawaii imports 92% of their food. If you know any great sources for this, like .gov websites maybe, with lots of statistics that, well, statistics, they're only so reliable, but that'd be awesome if you could pop that in the chat or down below after this live stream is over. I would appreciate that. 16% of the world's population depends on food produced elsewhere. It's not a huge percent, but by 2050, it's estimated that number will jump to 50%. I don't know where National Geographic is getting these statistics, With the exhaustion of farmland and the ways that climate will impact arable land, half of the world's population could rely on food imports. And if we're all relying on imports from another country, if every country is relying on other countries to import food, then where does that leave us? And then that's ridiculous. Obviously, we can't do that because there's literally not enough fuel in the ground to move things across the oceans and all that. So, okay. It's very sobering numbers, but it doesn't account for a few variables that could make the situation easier, and they're both in human control. One is farm productivity. We use massive amounts of land to produce very little food. Even the most efficient ways of farming, as long as it's what do you call it? As long as it is traditional farming. So obviously farming has evolved, but even in the most modern sense, traditional farming is still extremely inefficient. I mean, I can go on and on about that. You know, I grow microgreens, and so that's one example. So like hydroponics, indoor growing, that kind of stuff could be more efficient when done right, which is difficult because most people don't do it right in a way that's more efficient, that is. Anyway, by innovating growing techniques, either with better seeds, more efficient pesticides, or pesticides, that's not, I mean, crop loss to pests is not a huge number, but anyway, or more efficient ways to irrigate without losing as much water, that's huge. Farmers can increase their yields. When they say with better seeds, they mean genetically modified seeds, or the DNA, yeah, genetically modified. They can even grow in places that have traditionally been environmentally off limits to agriculture. I think what they mean is by modifying spaces that would traditionally be environmentally off limits. Like you could grow in Antarctica, but you can't actually like plant it in the ice and the snow. You have to make an indoor environment in it to enable you to grow in Antarctica. The other factor will be the change in human tastes. Today's calculations are done based on foods that people eat now, but that changes a lot, in case you didn't know. Next year, in 5 years, and 10 years, new foods will rise and fall based on fads, trends, what's accessible near where people live. By then, it's hard to know what we'll prefer to eat, except that tomorrow's foodies will hardly be satisfied, blah, 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 BS. There's a little bit of information. It was a good start, but it left me hungry. Get it? Let's see here. Our recent focus on American farmers and growers, it seems like the land we love has more than enough food to go around. If we took all the food harvested from American soil and distributed it evenly to all our citizens, would it be enough to go around? As we learned by reading Take Part's recent article on food myths, the answer is no. No, we would not. Although it seems like we should be able to sustain ourselves, the truth of the matter is that we can't. Now, it's not, I read the article they're talking about. They're not talking about like, well, of course we can't grow as many pineapples as we eat and mangoes and like certain foods that don't grow in a lot of the climates that we have. But it's not talking about foods that obviously have to be imported. It's talking about like beef and pork and chicken and snap peas and tomatoes and asparagus and food that we can actually asparagus likes cold weather. But anyway, foods that we can grow, we're not even able to sustain ourselves based upon the amount that we grow. So anyway, blah blah blah. Long story short, this article made me think, well, what are we growing? What are we using the land for? Because most people live in cities now. I've seen different numbers for this as well, between 88 and 95 or 98%. That's a big difference, but still, that's a huge population of the people that live in big cities now, or even smaller cities. And so what that's saying is all the farmers aren't farming anymore, or they've died and their kids don't want to farm, so they sell the farm to the neighbor's farm. And farms are a lot bigger, but they're handled by much more efficient tractors, basically and there's a lot less people actually out in the farms farming because it's so much more efficient. And so we also have less farmers that but they own more land per farmer, per head of farm person. But anyway, so many people are in the city. So I'm thinking, well, I know we do farm tons of land, tons and tons. I mean, as much land as we can get our hands on and actually use for farming, because there's a lot of land that's not good enough, or it's a conservation land, or it's a road, or it's a city, or whatever. All the land that we can't use, what are we using it for? And honestly, I already knew the answer to that question, but I wanted to look it up just to kind of verify and make sure that I'm not off with this. And it's grains. Our primary production in this country is corn. Next is soy. And the reason for that, for the most part, is that corn uses nitrogen out of the ground and soy places nitrogen into the ground, technically. So what they'll do is they'll rotate crops on a yearly or bi-yearly basis or whatever. They test the soil to find out when to rotate the crops. But did I say weekly, bi-weekly? Yearly. Anyway, you plant corn, you get corn, you plant soy, you might harvest the soy. A lot of people don't, which is ridiculously stupid. But anyway, they say it costs more to harvest than it does to just leave it for the year. That's ridiculous. Than what you get for the crop. But yeah, it is ridiculous. Anyway, so we grow those for the most part, and then up north we grow a lot of wheat, and that's the third, I think. Don't quote me on that one, but that's the third largest crop we have. So obviously we can't survive on corn, soy, and wheat. We would need to see much larger amounts of tomatoes and beans and other legumes and tubers and like carrots and potatoes and well, carrots aren't tubers, but taproots. But anyway, a storage root, a taproot. Anyway, we've got these other sectors of agriculture that are so minute, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be bigger, other than people think that we have to pay Americans so much to work and to harvest that we couldn't do that, but that's not true at all. We could have exchange programs from other countries and things where they come and they basically all that harvesting they're doing in Mexico, they could still do it here in the US, and it would place some of that money back in our hands, and then we would be able to export more than we import and blah, blah, blah. But people don't want to change. So, well, the younger generations seem to want this change, but we're going to have to wait for it, I guess. Anyway, we're growing corn. And so you say, well, we need the corn. Well, what do we need the corn for? We have to ask these questions, not just arguing, because I think that it would be better that we grow a more diversified crop and do a lot of rotating of crops and things like that. I'm not just advocating for that because I think it's great. So which I do, but so what do we grow the corn for? Well, ethanol, the largest producer of ethanol in the world. We produce so much of it that we import corn beyond the corn that we grow. It's ridiculous. And it doesn't really lower gas prices enough, and not all cars have flex fuel capability or ethanol use capability. People are ruining their cars on a daily basis, putting the wrong fuel in there. Whatever. There's ethanol, which we can also get more ethanol from other plants, such as hemp. But then we don't grow hemp because two things. One, people think it's pot, like it's marijuana. Well, you can't get high off hemp. It's not. It's a different variety, species than regular, like medicinal and hallucinogenic marijuana. So there's that. And then two, it could replace wood products, so or paper products mostly. So the logging sector of the economy, the loggers will lobby against having that legal. So it's currently illegal at a federal level. So there's that. Corn. Sorry, ethanol. Yeah, okay, corn. What else do we produce corn for? For most of the corn that we produce is not edible. There's different varieties of corn, and most of it is for fuel and and I'm not saying necessarily in this order, but for fuel and to feed animals. It's for feed, and it's high in starch, but not in sugars. And we like to eat sugary corn. That's why it's called sweet corn. You look in a canned corn, or even corn on the cob, it's sweet corn. It's not this high starch corn. And we also produce a lot of corn to produce whiskey or other alcohols, but even neutral spirits and things. But anyway, oil. We use it for oil. We produce corn oil, high fructose corn syrup. All of these things are made from corn. Do we need all of the corn that we grow? No, we could replace a lot of these things with much more efficient products. We could safely get a lot more fuel from offshore or even on land. Here in the United States, we have much larger reserves of fuel than people think. We could even rely on countries that are closer to us our companies could go into those countries and get fuel. And there's just there's a little bit of an ecological debate, but there's mostly just a big political debate over that. So it's too bad because it's hurting our people. It's hurting the world, honestly, because this whole trade deficit over agriculture spins out of control. Obviously, as I'm going through these tangents, it just leads to bigger and bigger problems. So, yep, corn. There's that. But let's go ahead and go to some of the. Oh, you got to be kidding me! Hold on. I want to go to that take part. Top 10 American food myths. Here it is. It's gone. The top 10 American food myths on takepart.com is gone. That sucks. But whatever. It doesn't change anything. We don't produce enough food to support ourselves. The sea-free diet. This says, if we didn't have California, what would we eat? Food scientists at Cornell University have produced a strain of broccoli thrives in hot environments, blah, blah, blah. Okay. California, where cool coastal fog is perfect for growing standard broccoli, currently produces more than 90% of broccoli grown in the United States. What do we have? California produces a sizable majority of many American fruits, vegetables, and nuts. 99% of artichokes, 99% of walnuts, 97% of kiwis, 97% of plums, 95% of celery, 95% of garlic, 89% of cauliflower, 71% of spinach, and 69% of carrots. Spinach yield per acre is 60% higher than the national average. What else have we got? Interest rates dropped 100% gold rush. Okay, this was produced in 2013, and I'm gonna have to call BS on those numbers. It doesn't link that. It doesn't say according to blah blah blah. It just says California produces all this stuff. No other state or even a combination of states can match California's output per acre. Lemon yields in California, for example, are 50% higher than in Arizona. They're comparing apples to oranges. Of course, California is higher than Arizona. Arizona is freaking mostly desert. That's okay. Now compare California's yield of lemons or other citrus, for that matter, to Florida. Stupid. This article is someone went out and fulfilled their own bias and found some numbers somewhere. I don't know, maybe the California website, maybe something else. I'm sorry, I got something that's tickling my nose. I'm not picking my nose, guys, I swear. I'm not going to agree with all these numbers because there's no research element behind it. They're just like, here's some numbers that I made up, or that came from a random other article or something, maybe, who knows. This comes from slate.com. I don't know. I could do some research into what Slate, it says Slate Group, the Graham Holdings Company. I could do some research into who they are. That might tell us why we're seeing these numbers. It was written by Brian Palmer. No offense, Brian. I'm not trying to defamate your character. I just don't. There's no backing for your numbers, so I can't believe them. But I do know that California is a very large producer of the food that we have here. Also, 97% of kiwis. California produces a sizable majority of American fruits. 97% of kiwis. I know where kiwis grow. I know what kind of climate they grow in. I'm not sure if that's quite right. I also know that since the major drought that we had recently in California, that they had recently in California. I say we as the U.S. or they as in Californians, because I don't live in California anymore. But anyway, they may not be producing this much anymore. Next, this is why cities can't grow their own food. I don't have to go through this article. I kind of told you the basics about that. I've done giant amounts of research on rooftop growing and indoor growing and things like that. And there are certain foods that really, really would have to be imported to match the level of use, or at least imported out from outside the cities is what I mean. That being said, most of the food, like 80%, numbers that I've been able to calculate with study groups, 80% of the food that cities consume could be grown within a 10-mile radius of the city and inside the city. So that's a big deal. That's excluding excluding foods that simply will not grow in that region, like coffee. You can't grow. Omaha, Nebraska is cold like half the year. You can't grow coffee here. That'd be impossible. Pineapples take land mass and they take a while to grow, and they need a tropical environment. Trying to recreate that inside or within 10 miles of a city would be folly. Even if we built 10-story buildings all the way around the city, 10 miles out, and we made specialized environments, it would still be difficult. And you have to take into consideration how much that would cost compared to just bringing the food in, either importing it from other countries or from other states or regions where that food will grow better, like wheat. And we do need corn, and soy, but we don't need as much as we make. But anyway, what else? What else do we have here? Okay, Investopedia, the 4 countries that produce the most food. China, India, US, Brazil. No country produces as much as efficiently, and there's a link for that within the paragraph. So no country produces as much as efficiently as the US. Like I said, despite having a smaller workforce than China or anyone else within the agricultural sector, the total per person in that country, the total U.S. agricultural product is almost as high as China. Food production is spread across most of the country, but the largest food producing states include California, as we stated, Iowa. That might also be not just because of crops, because they're mostly corn and soy, just like here in Nebraska. But because of pigs. There's more pigs in Iowa than there are people. In fact, I think there also might be more chickens in Iowa than there are people. And there's more cows in Nebraska than there are people. Texas, once again, they produce a bit of food, but they can have huge drought years. So like years and years of drought. Texas, really a lot of that produce is food is probably cattle and other meats. Then Nebraska, and then Illinois. Illinois, or Illinois, however you say it. However you say it the way you want to. Illinois is also huge on corn and soy. They're not growing. Yeah. So when you add Iowa, Nebraska, and Illinois to a list of 5, that's 3 out of them that are really just producing corn and soy. So they're looking at food production rates, but we have to look at like food for human consumption, right? And then we have to look at what's not exported. And then we have to look at, are we producing a whole bunch of the same food, like only corn and soy? Or are we talking like a bunch of different foods, like what you'd really actually eat if you went to the grocery store? Because you're not going to walk into the grocery store and buy only corn and soy, duh. So that shrinks again. And so we're actually producing a tiny, tiny amount of food, but it's too bad. American companies dominate the food export market. Second place to the Netherlands, still exports 35% less than the US, and is closer to 10th place China in terms of international product. That is a weird sentence. But anyway, second place is Netherlands to us for export of foods. So, weird. Why are we exporting so much effing food? What I'm saying is food is not something that you can produce and export that's actually worth its weight once it's exported, because you have to pay middlemen along the way. You have to pay for the shipping. You have to pay for it to get to where it's going. You have to pay for the retailer at wholesale pricing, and it's just passing through so many people, and it's traveling so far, and it has to be picked so early, and it's not ripe until it gets there, and it's weird because it doesn't actually fully ripen ever, and it's just a horrible practice. It's a stupid practice that wastes so much time, so much effort, so much money, so much food goes to waste just exporting it in the first place. It's ridiculous that we do not eat our own food, and the percentage of the types of food that we grow. It's just blows my mind. Next, another Google search. How many square acres grow corn in the US? Here's what's interesting. You're not going to find that right away. If I type that into Google exactly as I said it, how many square acres grow corn in the US? The top thing that comes up is texascorn.org. Great. Tell me about Texas. Check this out, though. For the state's corn production, just in Texas, irrigated corn accounts for approximately 65 to 70% of their corn production. Just short of 80. It's like 78.66 or 67 Repetent-Bar, whatever. 66 Repetent-Bar or 67. 79% of Texas corn, Texas agriculture is corn. And 65 to 70% of that is irrigated corn, meaning they have to find water and bring it to the crops. Ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Texas is a huge state. I mean, and there's much more arable quality land to grow on there than people think. It's not some giant desert state. Yeah, blows my mind. U.S. feed grain production for 2017-2018. Source is USDA. This is from, I'm on the USDA website now. We have 96.4% of U.S. feed grain production is corn. There's where that's going, like I said. And then 0.3% is oats, 0.9% barley, 2.4% is sorghum. Sorghum, sugarcane, I believe. Sorghum, sugar. Sweet sorghum. It's a grass. There's many types. Sweet sorghum is sugar. Makes sugar. It's one thing that can make sugar, I should say. So corn is grown in most U.S. states, but production is concentrated in the Heartland region that includes Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, eastern portions of South Dakota and Nebraska, western Kentucky, and Ohio. Oh, and the northern 2/3 of Missouri. Iowa and Illinois are the top corn producing states. So there you go. There's what they're growing. Like I said, they're not. When we say, oh, well, Iowa is one of the biggest food producers. Well, most of what they're producing is corn, and so we're not eating that much corn. It's being used for other things. And then most of that corn is not actually food grade. It's not human food grade corn. Unless you're using it for popcorn. That's from the USDA. It doesn't get any more statistical and objective than that. I know conventional feed law is not good for me, but is grass-fed. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, well, we're producing so much corn. How much of that is going to like beef production or something like that? Because I assumed, and I found out this isn't true, that we are producing all the beef that we eat. It's ridiculous. It's not. That's not what we're doing at all. We are so upside down. So upside down. Super short answer is that meat from cows that graze freely on grass for their entire lives is the best for your health. Okay, kind of know that, right? This is from nutritiouslife.com. What are we doing? Organic versus grass-fed, nutrient differences, the bottom line. Okay, so here's where I was going with this. I was wondering, okay, what percentage of cows are being fed with corn as opposed to with grass? And I know most of our beef comes from feedlots. I said, that's weird. I can't remember why I was doing that search. I'm going to delete that. Do we use most of our corn in the United States? Time to rethink America's corn system. Corn for food, not fuel. Why do we grow all this corn? USDA ERS background. So, Scientific American. I'm going to say sometimes they're not that scientific, but they're about science. So, they'll hopefully see some pretty objective stuff in here. It's time to rethink America's corn system, according to Scientific American, under the sustainability tab. Go figure. Because this is not sustainable. It's not. It's ridiculous. Only a tiny fraction of corn grown in the U.S. directly feeds the nation's people, and much of that is from high fructose corn syrup, not from actually just eating corn. like I said over and over again. Sorry, it just blows me. It's so dumb. It is just dumb. This essay was posted initially on Enzia.com and is reprinted here with permission. Interesting. Nothing dominates the American landscape like corn. Sprawling across the Midwest and Great Plains, the American Corn Belt is a massive thing. You can drive from central Pennsylvania all the way to western Nebraska, a trip of nearly 1,500 miles. Okay, the U.S. is only like 3,000 miles across, so that's saying something. And witness it in all its glory, if you want to put it that way. No other American crop can match the sheer size of corn. So why do we as a nation grow so much corn? The main reason is that corn is such a productive and versatile crop. It has become very productive. And by productive, they mean through genetically modifying corn. Yeah, that's right. It's all genetically modified. Stop freaking out. All of our food is modified. Nothing you eat is really an heirloom. Trust me. It's not. Heirloom seeds aren't even really heirloom. They were genetically chosen and bred or modified at the genetic level. Anyway, soapbox, off my soapbox, onto another one. The main reason is that corn is such a productive and versatile crop. So we've made it, okay, versatile. It's not that versatile. The things that we use it for, there are better crops that could replace it. Oil, better from hemp. Eat more easily genetically modified to grow bigger and larger hemp. As a food, it's not a great food source. You don't digest half of the corn you eat, by the way. That's why, sorry, I'm gonna get a little personal here. You know when you poop and you see corn in there? It's one of the few things that like just goes straight through you. It's because your body can't break it down. It doesn't have enough of the right enzymes to break down the starches. So there's that. So responding to investments in research and breeding and promotion, it has changed. It has incredibly high yields compared to with most other U.S. crops. U.S. crops, as in if we just freaking grew other things and we decided to put more research into that and into corn, then they would yield more. It would, duh. Okay, so and we're talking yields, so that's the amount that you get per acre. Because corn can be planted right next to each other. It's a lot taller now. All the corn cobs are bigger than they used to be, and they have been growing and growing and growing due to genetic modification, et cetera, et cetera. But when you say that it is productive, it's not productive to destroy the soil and soak up every little bit of nutrients out of it and have to cycle between corn and soy. We're basically, if there's a drought in the Midwest, we're going to see another Dust Bowl at this point. We absolutely will. If there's a big enough drought like there was back during the Dust Bowl. If you don't know what the Dust Bowl is, look it up. I don't have to go into that for you. Because it's taught in history. It should have been taught in high school for you, at least. It's not productive other than literally making a large amount per space. But the amount of pesticides and everything that goes into it, that's not productive. In the long run, it does more damage. So compared with most other U.S. crops, and it grows nearly anywhere in the country, absolutely not true, especially thriving in the Midwest and the Great Plains. Plus, it can be turned into a staggering array of products. Corn can be used for food as corn flour, corn meal, hominy, grits, or sweet corn. It can be used as animal feed to help fatten our hogs, chickens, and cattle, which is fine, but it should be used near the end of their life cycle, not the whole time. And I can tell you why. You can grow better tasting, higher quality, healthier animals by growing indoor feed feedlots. You make what's it called? It's a grow room, and you just grow sprouts. Basically, you don't need any lighting for it. And you can use things from corn to wheat to all kinds of products. We could import the seeds, but then grow, and it would cost way less than feeding all this corn and doing all the farming and taking all the land to do that farming. We could grow everything on site for these cows, and it takes since you grow vertically instead of growing outward and then transporting that to a place where it's dried and milled and then processed and then sent to the feedlots. And then the cows are taken from the feedlots to the slaughterhouse, to this, to that, to that. It just doesn't make any sense anymore. It's just so stupid. We could grow all the food on site for our cattle, and for the hogs. Chickens are a little different. They don't eat. You can't just process like grass products like pigs and cattle can. But anyway, yeah, that's ridiculous. There's a name for that. Fodder. Fodder? Is that it? Hold on. Fodder. Yes, sorry. It's called fodder or sprouted grass. And you can grow it like the grow room that I have in the basement. You guys can watch my other videos if you haven't already. We can grow fodder in trays. All you do is put the seed in there, water it. There's no lighting. The trays are stacked inside a room, so you're using all the space. You're not using a bunch of land to grow grass that takes forever to grow. You're growing it like this tall and then taking it out. The roots grow together and it creates a mat. And you just take the mat out and you toss it on the ground by the pigs or the cows, and they eat it. You can do it for horses. You can do it for all kinds of animals. And it's super safe, super healthy, makes them taste better, and it's cool to finish them off on corn products because that'll fatten them up, and so the higher fat content obviously makes them taste better. But yeah, we don't have to be growing corn because you grow more product in those grow rooms for less money than you do corn. Why we're not doing this more, I don't know. Where were we? Scientific America. And it can be turned into ethanol, high fructose corn syrup, or even bio-based plastics, which we can get more bio-based plastics out of genetically modified sorghum. So there's that. We can modify sorghum to grow 20 feet tall. No wonder we grow so much of this stuff. And if it's just for plastics, then you don't have to complain about the food aspect, like, we're genetically modifying things and then eating it. Well, we're not eating it if we're doing the sorghum and creating it into ethanol, oil, non-food oils, and plastics. But anyway, it is important to distinguish corn, the crop, from corn, the system. As a crop, corn is highly productive, flexible, and successful. It has been a pillar of American agriculture for decades, since we first got here, and the Native Americans gave us what is now corn because it's been modified, like I said, like crazy. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the modification. I'm actually really pro GMO, but while also understanding the risks at hand. So it has been a pillar of American agriculture for decades, more like hundreds of years, and there is no doubt that it will be a crucial part of American agriculture in the future. Yes. However, many are beginning to question corn as a system, how it dominates American agriculture compared with other farming systems or practices. It's probably a better word. How in America it is used primarily for ethanol, animal feed, and high fructose corn syrup, rather than just food crop. How it consumes natural resources, like I said. How it receives preferential treatment from our government. Yeah, well, Monsanto and lobbying, you can thank them for that. The current corn system is not, load properly. The current corn system is not a good thing for America for 4 major reasons, according to Scientific American. 4 major reasons. The American corn system is inefficient at feeding people. I've gone over that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Typical yields between 140 and 160 bushels per acre. Delivery of food through the corn system is far lower. Mostly biofuels. Like I said, 40% is used for ethanol. And then as animal feed, 36%. So that's 76% just goes toward feed and ethanol. Finally, we're getting to the numbers. You don't have to just take my word on it. And then distillers, like I said, grains left over from ethanol production is fed to cattle, pigs, and chickens. They'll use, so the distillers make alcohol. Oh yeah, good stuff. And then, and then they take the mash bin, what's left from the mash. So the wash goes into distilling, and then the mash, what's left of it, the grains, sprouted grains that have been fermented, go to feed cows and pigs. And they love it, and it's tasty. And no, there's no alcohol in it. It evaporates. It's cooked off. In case you're an animal rights activist kind of person. Yes, the corn fed to animals does produce valuable food to people. For corn-fed animals, the efficiency of converting grain to meat and dairy calories ranges from 3% to 40%. So it depends on the animal. What this all means is that little of the corn crop actually ends up feeding American people. That's just the math. It says there, it's just math. The average Iowa cornfield has the potential to deliver more than 15 million calories per acre each year, enough to sustain 14 people per acre with a 3,000 calorie per day diet if we ate all the corn ourselves, which you don't want to only eat corn. So, but hypothetically, if we grew that corn and we used it to feed people, and it was just corn and that's all we ate, those are the numbers. But with the current allocation of corn to ethanol and animal production, we end up with an estimated 3 million calories of food per acre per year, mainly as dairy and meat products, which is enough to sustain only 3 people per acre. That is lower than the average delivery of food calories from farms in Bangladesh, Egypt, and Vietnam. Not put together, each of them. So, interesting. I can actually do some math with that. Check it out. Right now, 3 million calories of food per acre per year, mainly as dairy and meat products, enough to sustain, about to sustain 3 people. And this is Iowa. This is the most productive land for corn. It's enough to sustain only 3 people per acre. And check this out. We have, go away. How many acres of corn? This thing's pro corn. Texas corn producers, go figure. Defensive corn. I'm just trying to find U.S. the world leader in corn production, accounting for 32% of all corn grown in the world. Wow. Okay, 87 million acres. I saw another number that was like 90 million acres, and I was trying to find it, so I can't quote where it came from, but the 90 million acres is, it's a USDA number from 2017, I think. So we have 90 million. 100,000 million. So making sure I put the right numbers in. 90 million acres. Okay. Times 3 people per acre. Okay. Okay. So the amount of corn that actually goes to feed people is 90 million. times 3 people per, it's 90 million acres times 3 people can be fed on that corn per acre, or that's what's being used, is 270 million people. There's 300 million, well, probably about 350 million people in the United States now. Okay. So you'll look at the consensus. The last consensus in 2010 said 300 million, I think. But obviously, we've grown since then. Our population is about averaging out now. Some years it's up, some years it's down, but it's gone up since then, about another 50 million people. So looking at what else? And this is, we're talking after it's fed the cows and the chickens and the pigs and whatever else, and then that meat is used to, you know, to feed the people. We're not talking like food, corn that's gone directly to food, at like us eating the corn. Okay, but we're including that and the meat product that it produces and the corn syrup, and it's just all the calories that actually go into the human consumption. And of course, these numbers are giant and unfathomably giant, and getting these numbers is not easy, and they can only be so accurate because you obviously can't follow the calorie, you know, or follow the kernel of corn to see where it goes until it gets into the human, you know, whether it becomes meat and then gets into the human, or becomes oil and then gets into the human, and then, or it becomes sugar, you know, fructose corn syrup, fructose, and then gets into the human. But they're saying 270 million people could be fed directly from that. Here's the point. Here's the thing, though. Now we have to multiply it by 0.33 because that's the amount that stays here in the U.S. Okay, so now we're down to 89 million people out of the 300 million the population. Okay, but we also waste 45% of our food. So we'll multiply the number we have times 0.55. 45% is that's a lot of our food. We just waste it. It's like I just ate this bag of Cheez-Its, but imagine if I left all of this down here in the bag and threw it away. I know, Cheez-Its, they're not great for you. They probably have corn syrup in them. So now we're down to 100,000 million. Sorry, there's no commas on my calculator, so it's kind of hard to see. We're down to 49,005,000 people are fed off of corn. What the heck is going on? Okay, first of all, even if we didn't throw away all of our food. Okay, so divided by 0.55. Now we're back up to 89,100,000 people. Let's say that none of that corn food got thrown away. 89 million out of our 350 million people, we're not sustaining ourselves. So anyway, I just wanted to look at all these numbers and figure out why and in what way can we, how, you know, what are some of the solutions to not feeding ourselves because we're growing corn? Well, let's take a card. Number one, grow fodder. Grow fodder. If you're a rancher, grow fodder. Look into it. It will save you money. You care about money, right? This saves you money. Do it. Stop buying corn. Use it to fatten up your animals before you send them off to the, sorry, I don't know what the proper terminology is these days, the slaughterhouses. Grow fodder, okay? Your food will taste better. You can charge more for your animals. You'll keep them healthier. That means less vet bills, blah, 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 blah. Grow fodder. kind of a good advertising point for me too, because my partner and I are developing a fodder room. It's super cheap and can be put in anywhere. So, number 1, grow fodder. Number 2, sustainable crop rotation and sharing. Sustainable crop rotation, rotation and sharing. Do it! Just do it! Just do it! Sustainable crop rotation in farming. So the idea here is you don't just rotate between soy and corn. Get that mentality and expand upon it. Start growing freaking semi-annual or annual products like that you can grow tomatoes, which will seed themselves. You can grow, I don't care, whatever, broccoli, asparagus, strawberries. Grow some corn, grow some soy, grow these things, but you'll get more money if you grow high quality vegetables and don't transport them off to another country or halfway across our country. Sell them in the cities that exist in your state, and then and rotate those crops. Rotate them. Rotate lots of different crops. Have lots of different crops growing on your farm at a time. I understand you're going to freak out at first because you're not used to it, and you're going to think, oh well, like tomatoes have to be picked by hand, and strawberries and certain things have to be picked by hand, and now I got to hire more people. And boo-hoo, you're not spending that much more money. Not buying your $1 million tractor or paying some company to come out and harvest all your corn for you, and you're doing everybody a favor. You're doing yourself a favor. And you're making more money. I got another one, but hold on. Yeah, I'll just. Sorry. Okay. And then, so this is sustainable crop rotation and sharing. Let's say that you want to make it easy on yourself. You only want to grow one type of crop for the year or biannually. You do one crop for half the year, another crop for another half of the year. Okay. Share your land with the farm next to you. Get equal portions of each of your land. Okay. You grow on 5 hectares and the other person grows on 10 hectares. So what you do is you share 5 of his hectares. So here's what you do. You say, I'm going to grow strawberries. The next crop I have to rotate into are next year are potatoes. And then the next person over grows potatoes. So you do strawberries, they do potatoes, and then you do potatoes. And then the next thing that you have to grow is asparagus. Not asparagus. Asparagus has to stay in the ground for many years, but to produce the shoots. Anyway, they need to grow corn. Okay, so they grow corn, and while you're growing potatoes, and then you grow corn while they're growing soy, and then you're growing soy while they're growing something. And then that way you can rotate out larger swaths of land and have the same type of labor being done on a larger portion of land. And then the batching will save you money because you won't have to you won't have to get all the different types of tractors and things that you need to change up the farming. Okay, and on top of that, your produce will, if you do it right, will be worth so much more. Now, also for this land sharing, grow yourself a field, and then you have a rancher who brings his cows in, and they graze on that field in paddocks, right? So they rotate, and by the time they get to the end, at the other side, your grass or your field, which isn't just grass, but it's a mixture of things so that it tastes better and it's healthier for the cows, has grown up again. Check this out. You have a field. You have the cows go by. after the cows, so you have paddocks. This is your grass field, right? Grass everywhere. Cows. You have chickens in giant mobile coops. Then you have rabbits. And then you have grass. Now look, you have 4 things that are producing higher yields than you could if you were doing one thing. 1, grass. Grow the grass. Number 2, the cows come along and eat the grass. Number 3, chickens come along and they pick out all the bugs from the poop, which helps it decompose faster so that it can feed the next bit of grass that grows. Then you have rabbits come through. They chew down the grass down to the roots or just about. And what they do is they can eat the things that the cows can't eat. Important, okay? And then there's the grass, and the grass grows back. By the time the cows and the chickens and the rabbits come through, and then you have one paddock that's grass behind them. By the time the cows come back, the grass is super high, and the land is healthier than it ever was. Do this for a couple of years, you will make tons of money. Money. This right here equals money. It's simple. Grass, or it's going to be different plants, natural plant, local plant, plant life, grass types, clover. You guys, you're farmers, you know what I'm talking about. Grass, cows, chickens, rabbits. Do it. Money in the bank. Grow fodder, rotate, share land. After you've done your cows, chickens, rabbits, grass, crop rotation for a couple of years, the land is absolutely gorgeous. Then grow your corn or your soy or whatever, or some crop any crop that will do great in the ground that you just prepared. Also, all that grass grows long roots. When we're talking like grass that's allowed to grow really high, if it grows really high above ground, it grows really far down below ground. And then when it rains, that water stays in the soil. It doesn't run off. It doesn't create pesticidal residue bullshit. Messed up pesticides all over the place, because you don't have to use them, because you don't have a bunch of pests, and maybe you do have more pests, but the environment is so healthy that it can sustain that plus what you have, and they're not creating any we're talking pests that like maybe eat the grass or something. I'm not talking like pests that create an unsafe environment for your animals. Okay, get into animal husbandry if all you do is grow corn and soy. The next thing, this right here, bees. Honey is worth money. Okay, bees are dying. We don't have enough bees. When they go away, certain crops are going to disappear, at least in the region where the bees don't exist. Certain crops absolutely need bees to pollinate the crops in order to create the fruits in the crops that we eat. And fruits as in fruits of the plant, as in fruit and vegetables. Bees, you need bees. Put them on your land, learn how to take care of them, hire someone to take care of them. Hire more people. Hiring more people means that more people have jobs and that we are contributing more to the economy, not just by growing the crops or the animals, the produce, if you will. Okay? Bees. Have bees. We need them. Just put them there. Maybe don't touch them. Maybe proliferate them, whatever. If it doesn't work well, figure it out. Bees are important. We need more bees. Those things. That's all. That is it. Oh, switch crops. Switch crops. See, it says switch crops. Just start it. Just do it. I know it's so much more complicated than what I just made it out to be. But the truth is that we're screwing around. We're so screwing around, okay? I'm trying not to curse here. I thought about it. I'm like, well, okay, if we're growing all this corn and it's going to fodder, then we must be producing enough meat to feed ourselves, or at least enough meat to feed ourselves the protein that we need. Kind of the point of meat, right? Even if it is using up too much water, that's a whole other issue. But it can get solved with these things. Okay. In the United States imported 2.95 billion pounds and exported 2.57 billion pounds of beef in 2014. This was the first year since 2009 that imports exceeded exports. The first time that the United States ever exported more beef than it imported was 2010. The United States has only exported more beef than it has imported annually 4 times from 2010 to 2013. So what we're saying is we produce all this beef and then don't even eat it. We export it. And I'm telling you, when things get exported, you can't sell them for as much money because all that extra money has to go toward paying for them to get where they're going and to pay the people who move that somewhere else. Look, I'm not saying that we need to focus. My camera's not focusing. Okay, I'm not saying that we need to cut ourselves off from the rest of the world. Absolutely not. I'm saying that we need to be more sustainable. I understand that this is not a presentation with a nice board and that I have everything memorized and then I'm going onto the internet while I'm talking to you to figure these things out. They're just kind of obvious, okay? We know that we do this and we've got to stop. I hope that this live video blog reaches as many people as possible. And I hope those people are the types of people that can make an impact by saying, wow, these are some great ideas. I want to actually do this. I'm going to go hire some specialists to help me figure this out. There's certain crops that we don't want to get rid of because they take years to grow anything. Nut trees, talking fruit-bearing trees. We've got, what did I say? Asparagus, I think, takes several years to grow anything. And certain crops that take very specialized equipment, that the equipment costs so much that you need to keep growing those crops to pay off your equipment. But as soon as you can, switch over. Start growing things that are worth a lot of money too. Set up some greenhouses so that you can grow some specialized crops that you wouldn't normally be able to grow in your region. I'm not saying to dominate your whole land like that. Instead, do the crop rotation stuff. But for part of your land, put a greenhouse in and freaking grow. What's a really expensive crop that I'm thinking of? You just eat the stoma from the flowers. Saffron. Grow saffron. Holy crap. You can grow saffron in Nebraska if you have a greenhouse and it's properly regulated. How much saffron is worth? Don't get me wrong. It takes a large amount of land and you only get like a tiny little yield, but those little strands are worth so much money. When Syria's government started messing with the tax system and screwed over all their farmers went out of business. Syria fell apart because all of its money was coming from agriculture. And 2 cash crops that they had were saffron and tobacco, specialized tobacco. They were like the main producer. Anyway, saffron's worth a lot of money. I'm not saying that those were their top cash crops. I know that they were big in their economy before the current cycle of unrest. So with the beef thing, imports and exports. Okay, so the change in number If it is negative, it means we imported more food than we exported. We imported in this only goes up to 2014, but and this is from drovers.com, and Drovers is I guess they are the major research and news article creating system for the beef industry. They say that they're driving the beef market. So their numbers are probably about as correct as it's going to get. But anyway, let me see if they have. Oh yeah, here we go. Sources, the FAS and the USDA, and it's all in pounds. So anyway, the change. Check this out. Negative number means we imported more meat than we exported. Not only are we exporting tremendous amounts of our food, our beef, this is just beef, we're also importing more than we're exporting. Meaning, not only are we not eating all the food that we're creating, we're then also purchasing a bunch of food from other countries to eat. And we know that we only eat high quality beef. That's a big thing in the United States. We love beef. And it has to be a high enough quality. Even like the frozen crappy stuff that you could buy is still a higher quality than probably what a lot of stuff that we would be able to export. Anyway, that's a whole other story. Negative 14.55% 2014. And then 2011 through 2013, as it's stated, 2010 through 2013, were all positive numbers, but it's small positive. 13.9, 9.5, 26.2, 0.07. And then here you go. Let's go back to 2009. You say that's a while ago. It doesn't matter. We imported 35.74% more beef than we exported. We imported 27.14% more beef in 2018. 112% more exported beef in 2007. 169% more beef was imported in 2006. Let's go down to 2004. That's not that long ago. In 2004, we imported 699.29% more beef than we exported. So we not only ate the amount that we did, that we ate a percentage of the beef that we created, and then we exported 460 million pounds of beef, and then imported 3,679,000,000 pounds of beef, 699.29% more for meat that we could have created ourselves off of all that damn corn that we're growing, but we decided to export all that or turn it into something that we don't need or turn it into some food product, which 45% of it is wasted here in the United States. Man, I'm getting a workout throwing my arms around. It's just math, guys. It's just the math. There's no arguing with this. You know what else? You know what else should be on these cards? Stop the lobbying. Stop it. Stop supporting the companies, the giant companies that tell you you have to buy corn and you have to grow it and we own you, because they don't. They don't. You can grow whatever you want. No one's going to put you out of business. That's it. That's my soapbox. We grow too much corn. We don't grow enough food for ourselves. So to wrap everything up, grow and buy microgreens. Omaha Microgreens. We offer local produce. We grow it faster than anyone else. We grow it more efficiently than anyone else. We use 100 times at least less water. We're on top of our game. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. You can see through my research. I understand what's wrong with food, with agriculture in the United States. I understand, and there is so much more to learn. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I understand what's wrong with agriculture in the United States, and our company is doing everything it can within its limited scope currently to fix that issue. We only deliver within a very short range, usually within about a zip code or two. So we're super local, super fresh. All of our food comes alive. Since right now we're doing microgreens, only microgreens, but in the future we'll expand into aquaponics and hydroponics and stuff. The greens that we grow right now are grown in a manner where we don't use soil. It's hydroponically grown. We only use water. That's the only nutrient that they need, because seeds have all of the nutrition that they need to grow into these small plants to the first true leaf stage, which is as far as we're growing them. So we would say that they're 100% organic, but USDA will not give you an organic certification if you do not grow in soil. Okay. Well, otherwise, aside from USDA certification, we're completely organic. We use no pesticides. We use no chemicals. You could say we use hydrogen peroxide to make it a safe growing condition. But I mean, hydrogen peroxide is a naturally occurring element, compound. So it's a safe, naturally occurring compound. Hydrogen peroxide, water, coconut matting, bamboo, and we grow it in food-safe trays. They're restaurant-safe trays. It's the same trays that restaurants use to rise dough in the dough rising ovens that they have. Those trays that just slide in and out of there, those big plastic trays are what we use to grow our microgreens. We use a climate-controlled facility. We use highly, highly efficient LED strip lighting. We are switching over to solar, and we will all of our energy we will get free, which obviously you got to pay for the solar panels, the solar system, but that will be free energy. We are going to switch over within 5 to 10 years to all electric cargo vehicles that cost less to maintain, do not require any fuel. The electricity will be produced by our solar systems. And they cost less money to purchase in the first place than gasoline motorized vehicles. Once again, not contributing to all the ethanol that is made from corn for fuel purposes. So yeah, that's it's a little bit about us, how we are trying to affect the agricultural industry. And we're small scale now, but just watch, we're growing really fast. There's a lot of hype about this business. So I'm really excited to share with you this information. I'm really excited to share the agricultural industry and the information about that. And I hope that this goes to be that this grows, this grows to be a big video on YouTube. I really hope that a lot of people watch this, because I'm not just on a soapbox here. I'm doing math to solve issues, and that's what we want to do as a business. We don't want to make money. We have to make money to survive. Let's get that straight. You can't be a business and not make money. But we want to solve problems. So thanks for tuning in. If you like this soapbox vlog, then go ahead and join me on this ridiculous pedestal and subscribe. Thank you.